Is it time for the Dallas Cowboys to make a big splash in the NFL draft? We'll debate on this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Welcome back. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can follow him on Twitter at McCoolBCB. And Landon, we've been waiting to do this show for a while. And Daniel Jeremiah, a couple days ago, tweeted, "I miss the old days when the Cowboys used to make big splashes in free agents or in the draft. They should trade up for Travis Hunter in this draft," which made us think, okay, let's do a show on this. So we're going to talk about him as a corner, him as a receiver, and then what it would take to go up and actually get him, and if it's worth it or not. But let's start with some big picture stuff on Travis Hunter. What kind of player is he?
Yeah, and what kind of person too? Because I think that factors into a lot of why people are excited about him. So let me just talk generally. We'll talk generally about him as an athlete, and then we'll get into the specifics of his positions. Right? Average height, weight, and arm length for both cornerback and wide receiver. Like he's basically at 50% height for both corner, 50% arm length, a little bit under maybe for corner and wide receiver. And weight, he's at 188 pounds. That's the one thing physically about him that if you had a knock on him, that makes you scared a little bit. He's a little bit underweight, but he's very
CeeDee
wired.
Lamb size.
Yeah, he's very wiry in the same way that CeeDee Lamb is, right? Where he's very, powerful and flexible. And despite not being like long necessarily, in comparison to other NFL players, when you look at him on film, he looks like a beanpole. Like he looks incredibly long because he's so kind of slight. But again, that's because he has a very wiry frame. Number one national high school recruit in 2022. Like I said, some notes on him overall. Played nearly 1,500 snaps last season. And I think that the reason I bring that up is because to me, endurance is the most amazing of his many amazing talents. Like that's absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that he did it while maintaining an elite, not just an elite level of playing on both sides of the ball. That's incredible. Obviously very decorated, the Heisman, Biletnikoff, the Bednarik, and then the Hornung Award, which is the award for the most versatile player in college football. Duh. I think if you win those first four, it's obvious you're winning that. The first three, you're winning the last one. First team All-American as a cornerback, second team All-American as a wide receiver, maintained a 4.0 average while doing all of that, by the way. I mean, just crazy. An insane athlete, just a different kind of speed. They Real Analytics clocked him at 21.5 miles an hour at a certain point during the season last year, which is, extremely fast. I think he was the fastest defensive player in all of college football, if I'm not mistaken.
I know some scouts clocked him at Jacksonville State, like 4.34 is his 40.
Yeah. And again, I think what we're finding about the GPS versus the 40 times is that GPS is about the fastest you can go, and 40 times is how well you maintain that top speed, right? And I think that shows you he's got both, right? Explosive jumper and runner, has elite body control, fluid, quick hips, ability to track the football, then catch the ball is more than just practice. It's preternatural. Like he has hands that are just hard to describe. Like it's the whole package. It's not just the hand strength. It's the eyes to track the football, the body control to be able to contort his body to get to the football. He catches the ball, even though there's penalty worthy contact being opposed of. There's just 4 or 5 different times where you're seeing him being absolutely mauled by cornerbacks and the refs throwing the flag, and he still makes the catch. It's just, he's absolutely unbelievable in that sense. Just an insane athlete. So I just want to stop there before we get into the cornerback notes, just to see if you have anything to add in there.
I mean, he's just one of the most fun college football players I think I've ever seen. I mean, I'm trying to think of like Reggie Bush was like always number one for me. Tavon Austin was up there for a while. Yeah, it's like he's in that range of like, man, here on the East Coast, a lot of times the Colorado games would start at like 10:30 Eastern time.
Yeah.
And I had no choice but to stay up to watch him. And there's just very few players like that where they're must-see TV, and that's Travis Hunter.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a phenomenal player, seemingly a phenomenal human being. I've watched several interviews with him. Just seems like a absolutely great kid. Just and just a, head on straight, very focused, has it all, has the whole package really in that sense, right? All right, let's talk about him as a cornerback, right? Of the two positions, I think to me, cornerback is the one where he seems at least the most instinctual. I'm not necessarily saying that he's better at quarterback because I don't know that I figured that out yet. I think that I felt before that he was definitely better at corner and that he could be sprinkled in at wide receiver. But man, there's just so much upside. We'll talk about wide receiver. There's just so much upside there. It's crazy. His pattern recognition is incredible. Like, I think a lot of what he does in his instincts are just the ability to like catch the ball. We've talked about that, like his wide receiver side playing out on the cornerback side. I think he has a lot of Trayvon Diggs in him because of that, right? You see that in the sense that he understands how to go. Anytime the ball's in the air, he's going for it, right? So, but I also think that some of his pattern recognition stuff is institutionalized because he does watch a ton of film. Like, I think he understands passing attacks. He understands route concepts and how offenses attack defenses, and he leverages that knowledge to his advantage when playing cornerback. And you see it in when he's dropping into a zone and he comes completely off of his coverage to come make an interception because he understands exactly where the quarterback's going with the ball because he understands the route concepts that are happening. Obviously he recognizes when he's in man coverage, he obviously recognizes the pattern of the routes that he runs at times. So with that and his athleticism, he's incredibly sticky in man coverage. He's a savvy. He may be at his best in zone coverage, to be honest.
Well, that was my notes. I think he is like the prototypical cover 2 corner where he can keep his eyes on the quarterback. And once he sees the ball come out, he can drive on the football and go get it.
Absolutely. Like, yeah, I mean, I want him playing in a silo up the side of the field. Not that because that's the only thing he can do, but because that's the most dangerous thing he does do, right?
Because you'd be terrified to like throw out routes against him if he's watching the ball be released from the corner, right? Because he anticipates things so well. Plus, he's got like long arms and obviously really good hands. Yeah. Like your quarterbacks would be terrified to throw balls like inside and late over there.
And they should be, right? Like, he teases quarterbacks in trail coverage. He explodes into a top gear to attack the ball once they are foolish enough to let it loose near him. The same skills that make him special at tracking, attacking, and catching the football as a receiver make him special as a pass defender, right? Like he's able to catch the ball in incredible ways. He's able to get his hands into spots where you didn't think he could, or that the timing of it is incredible, right? Like, that's the thing. Sometimes with think about Chidobe Awuzie, like when he played with the Cowboys, when it would get downfield, he'd do all of it correct. He'd be in line, he'd turn his hips, he'd be running in phase with the guys, but he just couldn't get the timing of when he needed to jump and hit the ball and knock it away. And it was always at the point of contact that he would struggle. That's not going to be a problem for this guy because he understands, he tracks the ball incredibly well. He times his jumps incredibly well. As a receiver, he does the same thing as a cornerback. Last two things, he's a passable tackler. He's not a great tackler. Again, my last note is my comp for him is a cornerback is a more fluid and more athletic Trayvon Diggs, right? Like, I think that's how I would play him. That's how he plays. But I think the difference between him and Diggs is that I don't have nearly as much problem with him covering a receiver across the formation in a mesh concept because I think he can handle the athletic part of that. Where does he win there? He wins wherever the hell he wants. And then we'll talk about the wide receiver part a little bit later.
I put Sauce Gardner down as my comp. The thing is, you're right about the tackling. Like, he doesn't miss a lot of tackles.
No.
But, man, there are a couple times where he'll lay some big hits. There was a game where in overtime where he forced a fumble in the end zone, and they won the game because of that tackle. So, unlike Trayvon Diggs, I think he's way more willing to stick his nose in there and be a tackler. Now, I don't think he's going to be like an asset in the run game or anything. But, again, everything I come back to is like Travis Hunter was born to be a cover 2 corner that can take the ball away, that can tackle if you need him to.
Yeah, I mean, I- it's beyond instincts, right?
Yeah.
It's learned knowledge, it's instincts, it's just God-given talent as a as a catcher of the football. The kind of combination, the blend of skills that we'll again obviously talk about when we talk about him as a receiver. But it's all those things in this package. Plus, he doesn't really have a weakness. Like, I mean, like in that sense, like I mean, he's not exceptionally big. If that's your
Well,
thing,
that was my weakness. Like for as a corner, I think some of these receivers, like you can watch your guy Elick or Alec or however you say his name, be
Like Anima.
physical with him a little
Yeah.
bit, and McMillan got physical with him a little bit. So I do wonder if like some of these like 6'3", 225-pound receivers
Yeah.
might be able to bully him a little bit. But I mean, we're picking nits because most of these guys
Absolutely.
get bullied by the bigger receivers.
Yeah, because one of those times you're going to throw it many times his way, and he's going to pick it off and take it back to the house. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like a lot like Diggs too, right? Like where maybe you'll get yours a little bit, but you're really playing with borrowed
Yeah.
time, because one of these times you're going to throw the ball just a little bit off. You're going to get hit while you're throwing the ball, or your guy is not going to be ready the way that Hunter is ready to catch the ball. And when it gets out there, it's going to end up in his hands.
All right, let's talk about Travis Hunter as a receiver and if we like him better at that spot compared to corner. We'll get to that next. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Imagine watching your favorite team play live, feeling the energy of the crowd, and witnessing unforgettable moments. There's nothing like experiencing a big game or a big fight in person. But getting tickets shouldn't be stressful. But that's where Game Time comes in, making it easier than ever to grab last minute seats at unbeatable prices. Game Time Picks makes it easier to find better value on tickets to sports, concerts, comedy, and theater events near you. I was looking at the Game Time app this morning for an event that my wife and I are going to go to on Saturday. Couldn't believe the deals. They're absolutely fantastic. Plus, Game Time has the lowest price guarantee, or Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. That is LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We are discussing Travis Hunter, the prospect. Right now, on the consensus board, he's 1-2, just depending on which board you look at. And with the Cowboys drafting at 12, pretty unlikely that he's going to fall that far. But
Definitely.
we've seen several teams make big moves up like this before. I want to talk about him as a receiver. What did you see from your notes when you watched him as just a receiver?
Yeah, I mean, this is, I think, the spot where I've just come around, I think, the most on him, right? Um, you know, I felt like before, when watching him, that he was very raw, right? Like in the sense that there isn't a lot of well, I don't want to say nuance, but like, kind of technical precision in some of the routes that he's running. Like he's not like an advanced route runner like some of the folks in the NFL. But I think the thing about it is that it doesn't matter in some ways, right? Like he understands the concepts of what he's doing so well that he makes it work with his athleticism. The guy has no problem separating. Like there's not any issue creating space for this guy, right? I think, the problem I also had in general with kind of evaluating him as a wide receiver is Colorado's offense is terrible. It's like, I mean, just as a scheme, right? Like it's just mostly screens, mesh, digs, stops, and nines, right? So if you want to see Travis Hunter, trying to dodge 8 guys all running at him in the flat while he gets another screen pass because this Colorado offensive line can't block anybody, you're definitely going to see a lot of that. But when you saw the opportunities for him to get downfield, to see him running like, the backside digs, the mesh concept stuff across the field, the nines, what you saw was an incredible athlete, a guy who could use his speed to get down the field, who uses his speed to scare defensive backs off of him so that he can get open on stop routes, and understands that athleticism, understands how to sell his routes to corners because he's had routes sold to him, right? Will get creative after the catch to create yak, not afraid to lose ground to gain even more ground while avoiding tacklers. And you see that where he'll catch a stop route and he'll loop back around 2 or 3 yards, and then suddenly he's six or 7 yards up the field. You don't know how it even happened. Varies his route speed to burst open when it's time to uncover. Like, I think that's one thing I really like about his game, is that he's not just trying to run full speed all the time, like you see with some of these DBs that are playing corner, right? Because they don't understand the nuance of it well enough that the varying speed in your stems really helps you kind of explode at the break point at the moment when the ball is supposed to be arriving and you're supposed to be uncovered. I just really like him as a physical presence, as a wide receiver, like the way he's able to kind of explode away from his cuts without having to drop his weight and shift. Like he's able to get in and out of his breaks without having to drop his weight too much, which is really just kind of crazy to watch. Even though he has a slight build, he does have some power. I saw him basically hump move a Texas Tech defensive back to the ground during one of those games. Explosive burst inside on in-breaking routes to create separation. Like, he just has all the elements of a great wide receiver already there. I think some of it can be refined a little bit more as he gets into offenses that are a little bit more advanced, but he comes ready-made, ready to run enough routes that like complement and constrain against each other already, that he's all ready to come in and be an incredible threat as a wide receiver. He is definitely wide receiver 1 in this class. That was one thing I wasn't so sure of after watching the first few times and then watching Tet, and I kind of went back and forth. But even though Tet's more polished as a receiver, this guy has everything you want in a wide receiver. And especially for the Cowboys, I'll just point this out, like, drafting a guy like this to come in and play wide receiver 2 is absolutely perfect, because ultimately, the one thing I worry about him as a wide receiver is cobbling together enough of a passing offense around his route tree that it would be varied enough. But if he's your wide receiver 2, oh my gosh, I mean, forget about it. You're just going to tear up the league, honestly.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you my comp, and I'm going to explain to you why I got there. So
Let's hear it.
He reminds me a lot of Odell Beckham coming out of LSU.
I saw that too. I see it.
Because first of all, the ball skills are incredible, and Odell was able to separate all the time at LSU. But if you remember, that was like the Les Miles, Cam Cameron offense, which was very vanilla and did not ask their receivers to do a lot, like in terms of like recognizing stuff. But anyway, just a very bland offense. Odell was not the most polished receiver coming out of LSU, and that's why multiple receivers went ahead of him. Sammy Watkins is one because he was just a much better route runner coming out of Clemson. But Odell, I think, went 12 in that draft, and it took about 2 games into Odell's career to realize, okay, hey, this guy should have been the first receiver drafted, because he's a rare athlete with rare ball skills. And that's what you see from Travis Hunter. And again, this is such a not scientific way to discuss players, but he just moves differently with the ball than any other of the receivers I've seen in this class. And that's why I think he is a wide receiver in the NFL, and that you can play on defense when you need to. Maybe you bring him in certain packages. Maybe he's your dime corner. Maybe he's your nickel corner that plays in the outside. But I think you're going to get the most bang for your buck with Travis Hunter as a receiver, because I think he's as good as any of the receivers that we saw get drafted last year inside the top 6 picks.
I don't disagree, except I think he's both. Like, I honestly, I don't understand the argument of not playing him on both.
I agree. Like, but I'm saying if I were forced to pick one,
yes,
I want him playing
I can understand that. I can understand.
But I think there's a feasible way to do it where you could have him play both.
Yeah, I agree. I think I probably would go the other way. But I mean, I completely. My first preference is for him to play both. So I certainly see your side as well. That does make some sense for me. I think if you were forced, I think cornerback is a position where you kind of would want him on the field all the time, and then wide receiver feels like a position that you could use him in high leverage situations,
Yeah,
right?
you can get him. I think it was Sigmund Bloom that was talking about him a couple months ago that there is a world where he only plays 15 snaps on offense every game, but he gets 7 targets in those 15
Yeah.
snaps,
Oh,
right?
sure.
So,
Yeah.
like, anytime that he's on the field, he's gonna be the number 1 or number 2 option, and that way you're not burning him out on first and second downs where it's run plays or where he's not the primary option in passing game. I understand that as well. I just think I think he has a chance to be like Malik Neighbors or CD Lamb plus. Like I honestly, I think he has a higher ceiling as a receiver than what CD Lamb does.
Yeah. I mean, I think I saw baby Randy Moss.
Yeah,
I mean, I hate to say that, but like that's what you see when he goes down the field and he goes up and he gets the football. I'm not trying to put like contested catch, stuff
no,
as like what we should be seeing because he does all the other stuff. Like that's why you're drafting him. But he has that kind of ability. He's not that bigger guy, but he has that ability to get down and go get the ball in a way that I haven't seen in a long time. So I tend to think that like you should be able to. This is my issue with that kind of conversation. We could talk about this in the next segment a little bit too. Is that I don't think you should be having to make that decision on
no,
where and when he's playing which position. I think that should be made on a week to week basis, depending on
sure,
the opponent.
yeah.
So
It maybe that's dependent on how healthy the rest of your
yeah,
roster is, right? If you're
yeah,
really banged up at receiver, maybe he's just playing full time receiver that game, or maybe your receivers are healthy and you need more help at corner. He's playing corner that whole game, so that's the value in Travis Hunter. Let's talk about how the Cowboys could actually acquire him. We will get to that next. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NFL Draft Show with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. Now that the season is over, get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every day, and find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcasts. All right, Lena, let's talk about how realistic it is that the Cowboys could go up and get him, because I do think it's possible. Because here's the scenario how it would play out. Let's say Cam Ward goes 1 to Tennessee. Abdul Carter, who is currently the betting favorite on FanDuel right now, goes to the Browns at 2. The Giants need a quarterback because Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston aren't the long-term options. They take Shador at 3. And now the Patriots are sitting at 4 with Travis Hunter. Now, there's a good chance New England just sits there and picks, but New England needs receiver help. They also need offensive line help in the worst way. Maybe they feel like they could get a big package for Travis Hunter. So, what would it cost to go from 12 to 4 to get Travis Hunter?
all right. First things first, before we get into this conversation, let's be clear that we are not necessarily endorsing this plan because I feel like I got a lot of pushback even talking.
Yeah, we're just talking about what it would look like.
We're just talking. I think at this point it would need to be like, okay, 12, 40, 44.
Mhm.
And then I think what else you have to give up really kind of depends. I would think it would probably have to be a third, like 76, or maybe like a couple of next year's picks, right? But they'd have to be pretty decent, like like a third next year as well, and of maybe a second or something. Like, I mean, I feel
This
like
is where I
that
might
should be
disagree
enough.
with you. I think because it's Travis Hunter and you're trading up for what everybody's calling a generational player, it's
Mhm.
basically going to have to be like 90% of what a quarterback costs to go get. So here, I think it's going to be something like this:
Mhm.
12, 44, your next year's first, and you get back pick
Of
4,
course. Yeah.
and let's say a third rounder this year. So that way you still have
Okay.
12, you've got New England's third, you've got your third, but you are losing your second and your next year's first.
Yeah, I know that people are going to be shocked, but I'm actually okay with this because I think we really have to examine the fact of what you're talking about, right? You're not just talking about a really, really good wide receiver. or a really, really good cornerback. You're talking about both. And I know that people are going to push back on the fact that he's not, going to be able to play all, maybe you don't think he's going to be able to play all the snaps, which that's fine. Like most of the time, wide receivers don't play all the snaps. Some of the times cornerbacks don't play all the snaps. I think what the thing that you can't miss out on is the opportunity cost to get an elite player, right? Like that's the real thing here is that, in a world where the cap continues to grow, elite players are not making it to free agency, right? Like you're never going to get an opportunity to go get a Travis Hunter without suffering a lot, like
it'll never
being
happen.
really
He
bad.
won't be available for you.
Yeah.
Right.
So, or a player of his talent, like unless you are really bad, right? Unless you give up a lot in a trade, or you lose a whole bunch of games and you earn that top 5 pick, right? I think in that scenario, 99% of the times I still wouldn't trade up for a non-quarterback, but because he can give you elite play at 2 of the money 5 positions, and you can again, maybe he doesn't play 1,500 snaps at both spots, but if you can get you can deploy an elite player on every single high leverage moment in a season on both sides of the ball with this player, that's worth what we just talked about. That's worth adding an elite player on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, again, maybe not every snap, but I can tell you what, if he's healthy, I can guarantee you he will be in every key third down, every red zone to play, every gotta have it third down, on both sides of the ball, he will be on the field. And that to me makes it worth it to trade away and get the opportunity, not just to have the player for the next 4 years, but to have the opportunity to have the player beyond that if you like him, right? It's a lot. And I think people don't quite get how him playing on both sides truly changes the angles on whether or not it's worth to trade up.
And the other thing is I've been looking at like some recent trade ups for wide receivers. The Eagles gave up a third to go get Devontae Smith. They flipped from 10 to 12 with Dallas to go get Devontae. Obviously, they're not regretting that. Miami gave up 2 first-round picks to go from 12 to 6 to get Jalen Waddle. The Saints gave up 2 first-round picks to go up and get Chris Olave, and I don't think any of those teams regret those moves, right? We're talking about, at least in my eye, this is a generational player. And I hate that word so much because when that word comes out, I'm like, okay, it's not generational. There's a guy
done something that no one's ever done. So it actually applies, right?
Right. Like, usually it's, there was a guy that's really good, but we've had a couple of years where the guy was just as good. I've never seen a player like this. Even if you go and look at like what Charles Woodson and Champ Bailey and Dion all did in college, none of them put up, if you combined all the receiving stats together, none of them did what Travis Hunter did. So this is truly a generational player. And if it just costs me 2 firsts and a second to go get him, I'm doing that every single day, because I do think not only can he help you on both sides, I think this is a franchise changing player.
Yes, it would be.
And I want those on my team.
It's a risk. There's a chance that it doesn't work out. I don't think that there's as high, but I think that's the thing. I think people are overselling the risk, especially in comparison to taking, all those picks. None of these players, especially with the Cowboys in the second round, the Cowboys have not had guarantees to make hits on the second round. So,
and the other thing with the Cowboys compared to other teams is they have a GM who can never be fired, right? Yeah. Like,
let's finally use that for an advantage as opposed to a disadvantage, right?
Don't be irresponsible. We talked about this before, but like when a generational player is available, they made the mistake by passing on Randy Moss back in 1998 to take a safer player in Greg Ellis. Obviously, Ellis was good, wasn't Randy Moss. Don't mess up this time if you get the chance to do it.
Yeah, again, I'm not 100% endorsing this because I think there is some element of risk to it, but I think that if you think that it's crazy that we're even having this conversation, then you're misjudging the talent that we're talking about, and you're misjudging the magnitude of having a player like this on your roster. And this is why trading up exists, is to get a guy who will change your franchise. Normally, the only person who can do that is a quarterback. This is one of the rare exceptions. And if you don't believe in exceptions, or if you think, oh, everyone's got an exception, go look at what this guy did that no one else in college football has done in history. That's the difference between him and everyone else.
And unlike maybe some other players that were like generational talents, there's no risk off the field here, right? Like there's nothing here to be like, oh, wow, are we really worried about giving up for this guy? We know he's really talented. It's not that way at all. In fact, it's the opposite. It's like, let's get this guy into our building because he can help improve the culture in the locker room. I would do it. And I'm usually of the belief, like, don't ever trade up for a non-quarterback because the draft is so random. This guy is so unique that I would be willing to give up not whatever it costs, but just under that.
Yeah, I would outright say no to these all day, every year. Anytime anyone brought it up about anybody that's not a quarterback, this is the difference. This guy is the exception to the rule.
Yeah. All right, that is it for today's show. We'd like to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every single day. Make sure you check out the YouTube channel, download the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on all platforms. On tomorrow's show, we are 1 month away from the draft, 4 weeks. So let's do more mock drafts. Let's do a full war room simulation on Friday. Make sure you tune in for that. Follow Landon on X at McCoolBCB. I'm at Marcus _Mosher. We'll see you right back here on Friday.